You found the skeleton. How would you tell it was that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research.
Hey everybody, we are live on the the Tower of Electric Babeloo, because I have only one movie reference when it comes to sequels, and it's that one. And apparently now I'm swept with Kip, so we're gonna fix that as we go. So sorry about that. And let's see, Vishanti, while I fix Kip, why don't you let everyone know how are you doing?
So I am coming to you from a new webcam.
Nice.
And yeah, so my resolution has improved dramatically.
Look at your background.
Yes, I
You've
am now
moved apparently
intent.
too.
No,
Or are you just visiting?
doing my ethereal stuff.
Okay.
So thank you, Joshua Geese, for providing this for me. It will help me also put out videos that are a better quality, because now I'm actually in a proper resolution. I'm not 480p or whatever it was before.
Nice.
So that is a very, very well-received gift. Thank you. And also thank you for everybody who donated to my fundraiser. That pretty much, it funded within about 72 hours, which I did not expect. So thank you for that. I will continue to be housed for at least the next 2 months. So thank you for everybody who contributed to that.
All right. Kip, how are you doing? Do you have anything that we need to go over before we get started?
Pretty good. Now, I should probably state at the outset that I polished off the very powerful high-octane Japanese whiskey last weekend. I am drinking an eggnog latte this morning.
I also had one of those this morning.
And oh, did you? Nice.
Fancy.
So I mean, this will probably last for the first hour, and then I'll likely open a bottle of wine. But you know, I'm sure the F-bomb fund will require some replenishment.
Well, that's okay.
Today. You know, and it's probably, I'm probably not going to have to do a sobriety test at the end of this stream.
Because we'll just know that you're already completely incapable because of how drunk you are?
No.
Okay.
I am
Sure.
I'm as sober as the day is long.
Well,
Wait,
it's winter. Yeah, it's December, so that's not.
Yeah, it's December. You may want to use a different.
And I'm in Canada.
All right, so we got a few things. First, I want to say, I know a few people have already figured this out. It's in the pinned chat. Carmen, who is the dog, who is the basis of the little dog emoji that we have, she is currently at the emergency veterinary clinic. She had a ruptured abscess, and it is going to be rather expensive to get that fixed. She is technically Ben's dog, but I am going to be contributing by giving half of what we get today in income. What I'm going to basically do is I am going to wait until YouTube figures out how much they're paying me for the first day of this video, which will happen in a few days. And then I will transfer half of that to Bent, which means any gifted memberships that you give, any super chats, super stickers, anything like that, including super thanks if you leave comments, half of that is going to go towards her medical bills. They are not insubstantial. They're, I don't... Later on, if people would like, and maybe even if you don't care, I'm going to be seeing if I can get the receipt from Ben, and I'll blur out, identifying information, but I'll leave that as a community post.
Veterinary costs... sorry, I was just going to say, veterinary costs are astonishingly high. And this is the thing, too, because I don't begrudge that. Like, I don't think I'm getting ripped off by my vet, right? Because, I see what they have to go through on a regular basis, and they are, sadly, tragically, very underfunded for the kind of work that they do.
Yeah, and it's tricky with
it's
Carmen. She's a very small dog. She's not even 6 kilograms. So, I mean, just doing anesthesia on a less than 6 kilogram animal is very tricky. So, we have a preliminary bill right now that was based on the estimate. It might go up or down a little bit after the procedure is done. They figure out exactly what's needed. Basically, the vet said that she was going with the middle of the road estimate. So she wasn't including the most expensive possibilities, but she was going for more than the least expensive possibilities. So, we're hoping that it's a relatively simple fix. She gets some stitches, she gets a gland expressed, and gets a cone and some antibiotics and pain meds, and then just comes home. But it might be more involved in that, depending on how bad the wound is. Because that dog is good at hiding wounds until they become a real problem. So,
are you sure your dog's not a cat?
I know. I did actually mention a few days ago, she seems a little lethargic. Then she seemed fine. So, yeah. All right, we have a few things to read here. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith, before the show even started, became a member at the amniote level, so thank you very much, Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith. Ben Thick Tunicate gifted 10 at Dapper Dinosaur memberships right before we started, so let's take some 10 drinks for that. Oh, by the way, I am drinking a prickly pear margarita, and I'm taking very small sips, because this is mostly just straight tequila. So... Here's 4.
So
5. Go ahead, Kip.
No, I was just going to say I'm just watching the chat here, but yeah, I actually pay for insurance for my dog.
Yeah.
We have 3, but the stupid one gets the vet insurance, and I'm still paying it's a really good policy, but I'm still paying $100. I think it's $110 a month now, and it keeps going up. So
yeah, well, it's not the kind of thing that goes down.
No.
All right,
but I'm just one of these days, right? He's going to do something just monumentally stupid, and I'm preparing for that.
Yeah. Okay, we've got let's see, Benthic Tunicate also sent £10 and said, for your doggo, thank you very much. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith super chatted $50, a little something to help Carmen. I hope all goes well with some disgusting pelagic tunicates, but also with all 3 kaiju emojis, so we'll take a drink for it. Pillowpunk half dog half canine for $5 said, I've gotten 10 whole days off work and just started Veilguard. My holidays are indeed happy, so I hope yours are too. I mean, look, I'm planning to take the rest of December off, because as has been pointed out to me, it's been a very long time since I took a vacation. And so while I'm still going to do the live shows and there's still going to be premieres, I'm probably not going to work on videos for the rest of December. So, you guys got 2 videos for me this week. Making up for it a little bit. Rebecca Raven for $10 says, get well soon, Carmen. We are expecting to have her back home later on today. Assuming that, everything goes well. And she'll be on some pretty heavy medication for a while. And she'll almost certainly have a big old cone to deal with. But, yeah.
Those are fun.
Yeah, she's going to have the cone of shame for at least a couple weeks, I think. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $10 says, and here, all I have is Devil Mountain Black Label coffee with a bunch of pelagic tunicates, a Mothra, a Ghidorah, and 3 little doggy emojis, because those are indeed Carmen, the dog we're talking about. So we'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $2 says, Fiona gives some of her Churu cash to Carmen. Well, thank you very much, Fiona. Mel DeBorn, who's been a member for 27 months, says, best of luck to the little doggy. Thank you. And then Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith gifted 10 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So we're going to be up to 22 drinks of this margarita before we even start reading the text here. And I also want to say thank you so much. The fundraising goal for a fancy avatar is still going to be the same. So, if we get enough on this, which is now partially a fundraiser, I'll still have a vote for a fancy avatar. And because people are being so generous, I will try to make sure to get some recovery pics of the dog and, in her little cone, so you can, see her in that adorable cone that she's going to really hate. So here are 10 drinks. Man, this is going to be a lot of tequila. I'm going to be done.
The last time Dagon was at the vet, he was he was getting neutered. It's not something that we would ordinarily do, but there were behavioral things that we were hoping this would help with. But he got a onesie when he came home, which was adorable.
Right, so
While
that is
Dapper's taking
10.
his drinks, I was gonna say that both Jillian and Jordan Dax in the chat were talking about Kip being sober, and they both were like, "Yeah, I'm as sober as the day is long on the winter solstice."
Yeah, in
The short
Canada.
It
day.
really is, isn't it? It's like the shortest day of the year.
Yeah, the only way that could be better is if Kip is in like Barrow, Alaska, or something where it's already been night for 15 days and it's going to be night for 15 more.
Well, we know for
But
sure.
I don't want him to like get attacked by vampires, though. So
Or polar bears.
That's worse. That's fundamentally worse.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact I'm not in Antarctica, and I think
That's true.
everybody's come home now, haven't they?
As far as I know, yeah.
I mean,
they're
it's
all
summer down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you were sober as the day is long in Antarctica right now, yeah, you'd just be completely sober. All right, but guys, so we were just reading about how, according to Bodhi, the Septuagint, which apparently he thinks is a different term than the LXX abbreviation, because he, remember earlier, said LXS, also known as the Septuagint, which was just perfect. In case anyone doesn't know, the way you pronounce LXX in this context is just Septuagint. It's just
I'm
short.
also. I'd like to. I'm just looking at this bracketed, this sentence that he's got in parentheses here by the LXX's reckoning in Codex Alexandrinus and some Vaticanus texts. Okay, all right. I mean, I guess that's okay, but
Yeah.
the Septuagint's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
I do. I just don't know that I want to do
do.
it here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guptu3 sends a little yellow doggy sticker. Thank you very much for 149. It's actually like really adorable. And then Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith says, I can't stand the thought of man's best friend suffering. Carnosaurs, depending on the nature of the suffering. And then sends, goodness, 5 different Carmen emojis with a Clay Dapper emoji and a
Clay
Godzilla
Dappy.
emoji. And we will take a drink. Thank you very much.
Becca Justiniano says, Macy knows that Vishanti's on today. She says hi. Hi, Macy.
All right. So, the last point that Bodhi was making was basically that apparently the Septuagint is actually following weird Greek traditions when it translates that the Rakia was a solid dome, which no, it's not. That's very much going with the long-standing understanding from Hebrew and Jewish sources.
We have established that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just letting us know for context. So we're going to continue on.
So before we do, maybe I should also say something that about this last week. Vish and I did a stream on my channel where we had to correct the monumental stupidity of Stuart and Cliff Connectley on this same issue in terms of understanding what the Bible says and what the words mean. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Nitro Indigo says, why do people still use Roman numerals? I just think they're fun. I'm like Marge Simpson. I just think they're neat. So, yeah, that's it. And I mean, I get it. Arabic numerals are more, they're easier to use, and it doesn't require as much work to read
also,
them. But,
it's a lot easier to put LXX instead of having to type out Septuagint every single time.
Although, to be fair, it would be...
a lot of the people that, like these guys, they would almost certainly start misspelling it. I think
it looked
avoid it.
It looked
just use LXX.
weird
for Mothra.
I think it looked weird too, wouldn't it? If we just called it the 70.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know.
it would be bizarre. But
the thing is, it's only weird though because you're not used to it. You're used to seeing LXX. If you had seen 70 for decades, you'd just be like, yeah, that's how we do it. It was the same thing when I tried to explain to someone
how we do
that, like,
it.
if we just changed to like a base 12 numbering system in everyday life, it would feel weird for a little bit, but that's only because you're used to base 10. It would become completely natural for anyone raised that way. That would just be how you count. I was trying to explain that, like, yeah, not all languages use base 10 numbering systems. It actually varies. There are base 8 out there. Some people use base 6, base 12, base 4.
Base 10 makes sense because you have 10 fingers.
Okay. That's not
Man.
why it's base 10, though. It's actually just an accident of history. But, alright, so...
I'm putting my headcanon out there. It is because we have 10 fingers.
Alright, there are actually very easy counting strategies for using fingers with other bases that people have been doing for before history, so it's really not very significant. Alright, so let's start with this paragraph here. Some argue the Genesis, and I think we'll start with Kip. And go ahead, Kip.
Yeah, some argue that Genesis 11:6, and this is what they begin to do, refers to the tower. But it makes more sense that the Lord is referring to their sinful... Oh, look, he's got a picture of it. I was going to show a picture of it.
We can still show your picture.
My picture's way, way better.
Mm-hmm.
Their sinful intention of defying his command to fulfill... Sorry, I gotta...
How dare you, sir?
No, I know. Defying his command to fill the post-flood world given in Genesis 9:1 and 9:7. In other words, they were building the city and tower in defiance of God's command. A city or tower is not inherently evil, but disobedience to God's command is.
Okay, we have to talk about that, because that's... Well, first I need to read this membership chat. The Cognitive Trifurcation, who's been a member for 7 months and is at the amulet level, says, personally, I'm a fan of the Babylonian finger counting system, both base 5 and base 12, meaning it's also a little bit base 60. Yeah? Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of options for counting on fingers that do not leave you with base 10. Okay, so here's the thing, though. In the text, the reason that God is concerned about this is explicitly given. It's not ambiguous. It is because God is worried that if they can accomplish building a tower to heaven, they won't be able to be stopped from accomplishing anything else. It is an explicit, direct threat to the authority and power of God, which he apparently takes seriously in the text. And then he says, okay, in order to make sure that these humans don't get too uppity and come for me, I'm going to confuse their language so they cannot build a tower to heaven. Because presumably access to heaven would also give them access to things like divine levels of knowledge and power and things like that. Because otherwise, why would he complain about them being able to do anything? Maybe not on an individual basis, but at least as a collective, it would apparently do something to allow that. And so
I think I would. I mean, one of the ways I would approach this paragraph is that I think Bodhi is partially right in that an inherent part of the problem in this text is that people are defying God's command, but he's not thinking deeply enough about that. And also his statement here that a city or a tower is not inherently evil, according to the writer of what I think is best described as the J account, or the non-P primeval history. According to him, yeah, it kind of is. Cities are bad. And if all you have to do is just read the text and look at all the places where cities are bad, it's pretty clear.
Yeah. Michelle, did you have something?
Yes, actually. Nitro Indigo in the chat says, I wonder if the Holy Spirit making the disciples speak different languages is a thematic parallel to the Tower of Babel. Mm-hmm. Actually, if you know your Jewish, rabbinic lore, it's actually a reference to something similar but different. So the traditional interpretation of the giving of the law at Mount Sinai is that God spoke in all the languages of the people, like all 70 known languages at the time. So having people spread a similar type of God-ordained message at the holiday of Shavuot, which is honestly marking the date traditionally that God gave the commandments at Sinai. That's meant to parallel that. It's not meant to parallel Babel directly, but that would be something that a lot of Christians might miss because they're not familiar with that aspect of Jewish interpretive history. Sometimes your study Bible will make mention of it, but Holy moly, there's a lot of membership chats.
Yeah, we just got
Wow.
20
Wow,
memberships
Gifted
by
memberships.
Savage Cobra.
Dang, Savage Cobra.
Wow.
So
Woo woo.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to start counting off those 20 drinks while Vishanti reads the next paragraph.
Should she read like the next two?
Uh,
Because it's sort of the
Vishanti?
same.
It's just a sentence.
You start reading, and when you stop, please stop at the end of a
Single
paragraph, and then we will
sentence.
continue on from there. How about that?
It's a
yeah,
single.
that works. It's just a single
Okay.
sentence. Okay. Archaeology may provide a good confirmation of this line of reasoning. The oldest recorded image of the Tower of Babel, found in the Schøyen collection, manuscript 2063, is an
It's
inscribed
actually-
stele with...
Sorry. Continue. I'll correct later.
Okay. All right. Is an inscribed stele with Nebuchadnezzar II and the image of a virtually complete tower. Do you want to jump in?
Me? Yeah. So maybe I'll. Yeah. I feel like we're going to need to spend a little bit of time on this, but some of you may or may not know that for 3 years of my life, I actually worked at the Schøyen collection, in a manner of
I
speaking.
knew that.
I should do that. So, and in this case, I'll just start with MS. Usually means manuscript. In this case,
It
it doesn't. This is This is Martin Schøyen's own cataloging
Oh!
system that he has
Bamboozled.
applied to his yes. So MS, I bet y'all can know. I bet y'all can guess what it stands for.
Okay.
It stands
Bamboozled.
for
Martin Schøyen.
Martin Schøyen. Yes,
Okay.
and it's Schøyen.
Good. Okay.
It's because it's got the O with the line through it. Now another fun fact about the Schøyen collection, you may be looking at this in Bodhi's text and saying, well, why has he capitalized and italicized the Schøyen collection? I mean, shouldn't it just be the italics capitals Schøyen collection? And for normal English speakers, that would work. But in this case, no. Martin Schøyen has actually trademarked or copyrighted the
goodness.
Schøyen collection
Oh,
with
okay.
the definite article capitalized. So
Good for him.
in every place where it's mentioned, it has to, it has to appear this way. We published like an entire book on artifacts and manuscripts from the Judean desert in the Schøyen collection, and it felt so stupid because every single time we had to do this, right? We had to capitalize the. It's a little bit like there was a movie. Somebody will know this movie. There was a movie a long time ago. This is what it reminds me of, starring Hugh Grant and Jeanne Tripplehorn, where he started to date this woman, Jeanne Tripplehorn, and she was the daughter of like a mobster, and this mobster owned a restaurant that he called the La Trattoria.
Oh yeah.
This is
Yeah, I remember that.
This is what this is, right? This
All
is
right, we got a couple super chats. Roshna, can I get an Uwu Keller for $4.99? Says God spoke in tongues. Yeah, I guess. And then Roshna, can I get an Uwu Keller for $1.99? Also says it's like talking about The Simpsons. Yeah, you got to capitalize the in The Simpsons. And Renee,
Exactly.
Intellectually Gerrymandered Reborn for $5 says a bunch of Carmen emojis. Will spare you finishing off your drink while contributing to the funds. Thank you very much. Let me make sure that I update
Aw.
the counter. So that-
Volpix says that they're catching up at 2x speed, and when I said cat, Arthur Kitty came in like a wrecking ball. Little
Aw,
kitties.
nice.
Did I say La Trattoria? Did I say La Trattoria funny? Because Vadim's making fun of me.
I don't remember. You might have.
Okay.
All right. So, do you want to show the image of this Tower of Babel image that you sent me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Let's talk about this because this
It is
is
on screen
so.
now.
This is, and I say was. This was my favorite artifact in Martin Schøyen's collection.
Okay.
Are you showing it?
I'm showing the photograph of the actual artifact, not the line drawing that you
Okay.
sent me.
All right. So this is probably a little bit difficult to see. The picture's like way. Shoot, I'm really trying, guys. It's way better than the crappy picture that Bodhi published in his book. It's still a little bit difficult to see and follow on your computer screen.
You want me to bring up the line drawing?
Or your phone, but yeah, there's a picture too, a line drawing of what's actually on it, and it's very cool. I think it's very cool.
The line drawing is.
If I remember correctly, the entire object, it's broken, but it's not very big. It's I think it's maybe 40 centimeters, not even that many. It's probably somewhere between 30 and 40 centimeters tall. On it is depicted Nebuchadnezzar II. And he's holding. You can see that he's holding like an object in his hand, and that's like the scroll, the plans of the ziggurat that he is renovating, and that's what this text is dedicated to. Then there is 2 pictures of the ziggurat, one in profile and another map view. And he says that this is Temen Enki, which translated is the foundation platform for heaven and earth. I think the title's important. We should all pay attention to that, to this structure. What we know of this structure is that it predated the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It predated the Assyrian Empire, because all the way back in like the 8th century already, we have some records of Esarhaddon, I believe, starting to renovate this structure, which is already broken down and in poor shape by then. It's been suggested that the structure may have actually been built by the great leader of the first Babylonian kingdom, Hammurabi, who was an Amorite. But this is still speculative. It's very cool, and scholars, I believe, do I have a dating here? So it was the oh, actually, I have measurements here too.
Nice.
Blackstone stele. Maybe I'll just read this. Martin Schøyen is a Norwegian businessman who is also a collector. This is from my forthcoming book. He's also a collector of a wide variety of antiquities, including texts and artifacts from the ancient Near East. He has most recently been in the news for ongoing investigations into the legality of a number of his purchases.
Whoops.
Several items in his collection appear to have been illicitly exported out of looted museums and protected sites in Iraq and Afghanistan, including this one, actually. One of these artifacts is a spectacular commemorative marker that was erected by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II to celebrate his completion of renovations of the great temple Temen Enki, house of the foundation platform of heaven and the underworld. The black stone stele measures 47 by 25 centimeters, is adorned by a depiction of Nebuchadnezzar II in profile, holding a staff in his left hand and clutching a scroll thought to be the building plans for the edifice in his right. This is important too. This is one of only 4 known images of Nebuchadnezzar II, and it is by far the best preserved of all of them. So, and then I'll just say a little bit here, and then we should maybe move on to see what Bodhi says. Before him are depictions of Temen Enki himself. The top, a portrait view of a 7-tiered structure, and underneath it, a map view of the base from above. Below the images survives 3 24-line columns of text, and it is thought that this represents about a third of the entire object. I have a special affinity for this artifact because it was one that I had the chance to see in person several times between 2012 to 2015 when I was working on Judean Desert Scroll fragments in the Schøyen collection. The artifact has been called the Tower of Babel stele. It is cataloged as MS2063, and it was officially published by the excellent Assyriologist Andrew George from the University of London in 2011.
Nice.
All right.
Got a few things to read here. Goop23, who's been a member for 29 months and is at the tetrapod level, says it's German for the Schøyen, which excellent
Schøyen.
Simpsons reference. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the.
Well, no one who speaks German could be an evil man. All right, we got Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $5 saying the floor plan looks like a classic D&D dungeon map with a Godzilla and two Carmen emojis, and I agree. I was thinking that same thing myself.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take a drink for that Godzilla. We got one more. Mark Agamotto 1313.
There's a game coming out of that someday, isn't there? There's got to be.
Oh, I bet.
So I actually do have a Bronze Age, dedicated Bronze Age TTRPG. It's a fantasy TTRPG set in a fantasy Bronze Age, where like gods and monsters are just like a real part of life, as if you're reading like the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, Kip, if you ever want to do some cool Bronze Age RPG, including one of there's like several different ethnicities to play as, and one of them are just fantasy Egyptians, and another one of them is just fantasy Hebrews, right down to having a prophet who led them out of captivity and wrote a 3-book treatise on their history and the laws that their god wants them to follow. So
we would have to get Josh in on that.
But
it would be criminal not to have him in.
It's basically a gender swap Moses, because the prophet is female. So, Mark Agamotto...
Miriam supremacy.
Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $5 says, oops, that was supposed to be $10, not $5. Sorry. Thank you very much. I will update the value here so we can keep track, because we're actually getting pretty close to Ben also getting a free pizza, which I'm pretty sure he would appreciate today of all days, given that it's been quite the day. So, there's Mothra. We'll take a drink for Mothra. Gillian, some guy on a boat at Alren says, what's the name of that RPG? It is Jackal's Bronze Age RPG. It's actually a pretty fun system. I've tested it a few times with some of my regular tabletop players. TD Lane was there, Chesh, Maddie from Science Side Up, and we had a lot of fun with it. One thing I like is it has mechanisms for permanent injuries, and also it expects that your character is going to retire and become like a new quest giver later on in the campaign when you roll up a new character. So your old character can retire after a life of adventure and then give out missions to new characters that you might play. So that's a fun one. And you're encouraged to have like a retirement party for the character if they survive long enough to retire. And, where you just tell stories and drink Iron Age beer or Bronze Age beer. And yes, in order to adequately describe the effect of going into a eating and drinking establishment in the Bronze Age, I did look up how to make Bronze Age beer so that I could adequately describe what it tastes like and the experience of drinking it from a long straw so you don't get the sediment at the bottom because they didn't filter it. So
Sorry, can I just point out before we move on that Bodhi's source for MS2063 is an article in Discovery News?
Such rigor.
He doesn't even cite the actual source? Oh my god.
It's incredible. Good work, Bodhi.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. Gee, Bodhi. Hey, Bodhi, look, I know you're never going to watch this, but if you do, you should cite actual scholarly sources in the real literature.
George.
I mean, that would require him knowing they exist and B, reading them.
Yeah. Jeez. All right. So we're going to start here, and Vish, do you want to keep going?
In this image that we just showed, whatever, the tower is essentially complete, with only a small portion at the top that is slightly indiscernible. But the tower is basically complete, though one should still be tentative, rather than dogmatic. Well, that's rich.
Okay. Where are we going, Bodhi?
Sorry. Oh, by the way, Vadim Marchenko says that there's a Christian-themed RPG called Dragon Raid. And look, I've played Dragon Raid, the game where instead of casting spells, you have to recite Bible verses from memory in order to have magical effects. It's real.
So it's just casting spells.
That's
cool.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm just waiting for you to scroll.
You got this part here down?
I can remember 3 words.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. But in the grand scheme, it was complete enough to serve the function for which it was intended. To keep people from scattering.
Okay.
Yes, that's the function of every temple, every tower. Nebuchadnezzar II was the king of Babylon. the later empire that flourished when Israel and Judah were in captivity. This was the time of Daniel and Jeremiah, about 600 BC for biblical reference.
Oh.
Nebuchadnezzar II wanted to tear down this rather old and dilapidated tower even in his day and rebuild it. Of course, he did not have the opportunity. A Greek historian named Herodotus commented on it in his day when he was in Babylon.
Okay, you can tell who this is written for by him having to preference the name Herodotus with a Greek historian named...
A Greek historian.
Because if this were targeted at anyone with any credentials or any interest in the actual field itself, you could just say Herodotus, because everyone knows who Herodotus is. It's like if I started a book and I was like, okay, so as the British naturalist Charles Darwin, it's like, yeah, we all know who Charles Darwin is. We're reading
Roman
this book
Emperor
about
Julius
evolution.
Caesar.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just
You're gonna...
read what Herodotus has to say here.
All right. This is from Herodotus. The temple of Bel, the Babylonian Zeus, was still in existence in my time. It has a solid central tower, one stadium square, with a second erected on top of it, and then a third, and so on, up to 8. All 8 towers can be climbed by a spiral way running around the outside. And about halfway up, there are seats for those who make the ascent to rest on. It's nice. On the summit of the topmost tower stands a great temple, with a fine large couch in it, richly covered, and a golden table beside it. The shrine contains no image, and no one who spends the night there, except if we may believe the Chaldeans who are the priests of Bel, one Babylonian woman, all alone, whoever it may be that the god has chosen. The Chaldeans also say, though I don't believe them, that the god enters the temple in person and takes his rest upon the bed.
That's why they leave a woman up there, just in case.
So, are we sure that this is the same tower?
I would not be.
Because
Herodotus is often wrong about many things.
Yeah, and not only that, like, I hope Bodhi's aware that, like, in Babylon there were a lot of ziggurats. This was just one of them. This was, probably the most. I suspect he's, and I don't remember the name of it offhand. But this, I suspect that what Herodotus is referencing is another newer than Etem and Enki, more larger, and more,
he's already
more
giving
significant,
more terraces than the one in the picture.
Yeah, and I think he said it's got a spiral stair around it, doesn't it?
I don't think we saw any evidence of that.
If you look at the image, I don't think and I don't have it in front of me, but I don't think it. I think it's a straight.
Yeah, it was
stairwell, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't know. Sounds sus to me.
Very.
And again, as you point out, Herodotus writing in the 3rd century BCE is, I mean, he's drawing on information that's already hundreds of years old.
I mean, look, this was a man who took reports of cynocephaly seriously, right? He thought that you could go places in the world and find humans with the heads of dogs who may or may not have been able to talk. That's spoiler alert. There is no such thing, nor has there ever been such a thing.
Don Giovanni, Emir of Hakan, says, in reference to you quoting Bible verses in order to get power, she lusted after lovers with genitals as large as a donkey's, and emissions like those of a horse. What spell effect do I get?
I don't remember if that one had an official spell effect in the game. I'm guessing it didn't. For one thing, it was aimed at small children. The target audience was 12 to 14. Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, not directly stating what everyone knows has lost us important historical knowledge, just saying, okay, that is a fair point. That there is a fair point. I've often made the comparison hey, if someone in 3,000 years tried to read your recipe, would they be confused by the word eggs because you didn't specify chicken eggs? And the answer is possibly yes. Mm-hmm. And that's also when we look at ancient texts, there's a lot of stuff that people just say, well, and then you do this, and it's okay, but what does that mean? Because everyone knew then, but we don't now. Even in recipes where it's add some salt. What do you mean add some salt? How much salt? I want to make this recipe now 2,000 years later. Help me out, okay? We'll watch tasting history.
Just a pinch. What unit of measurement is that?
Yeah, watch tasting history with Max Miller sometime, because he has that problem all the time. He's even with eggs, he's like, okay, so I know they were using chicken eggs in 1752, but they were a lot smaller, but I don't know how much smaller, so I'm gonna guess how many eggs to use. Metageeky Platypus
I'm gonna
Warlock.
eggstimate.
Yes. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $5 says, Herodotus, the hero dude, must have been awesome like Achilles or Captain America. With a couple Carmen emojis, a Godzilla, a Mothra, and a Ghidorah, so we will take a drink. Thank you very much. And then Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith, who's apparently trying to pay for this surgery all by himself, for $10 says, so Herodotus should be called Herongatus.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
With a tongue sticking out emoji, a Mothra, and a couple Carmen, so we'll take a drink. Thank you. Then I will update this so that it has the right amount, and we are getting really close to getting Bent a free pizza. And you know what? I hope he does get one, because, like I said earlier, today of all days, I think Bent not having to worry about a meal would probably go a long way.
Maybe
And pizza just rules.
maybe he should get 2 free
Well, he can-
pizzas.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Because he's also getting half of the money from this anyway, so... Because, I mean, it's for Carmen, but, like, the way that happens is I just send it to Bent, and it goes into his bank account, from which he paid for the dog, so...
Yes.
Because, you know, it's already paid, so...
Alright.
We're just trying to recover. So, Bish, do you want to keep going, or should I start out?
I'll just finish this off. Later, Alexander the Great. He was a Macedonian, by the way.
That's
Conqueror.
true.
The tower torn down with the same idea to rebuild it, but his death at a young age prevented it from ever being rebuilt, and so it passed into the pages of history.
Okay, Bodhi. That's
Wow.
an interesting choice.
Now, what do we do with this? Is that it? Is that
That's
the
it.
end?
That's the
Are
chapter.
you serious? What was the point of that? What, like, the discussion of Etem and Enki?
Mhm.
What was the point in this book?
It's like you're trying to pad a book report.
So,
Right?
Mark Agamotto...
Because
Sorry.
you do your thing, but then I gotta talk.
Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith asks, again, how much for the free pizza? I believe it's somewhere around the 99% mark. It's less than the 100% mark, though. I'm pretty sure we'll get there. We have more than an hour to go. And, yeah.
So, guys, like, this artifact has major implications for this story
Mhm.
about the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11. What? I
Okay.
didn't hear that.
Fix your vowels, sir.
Yes, Babel or
So-
Babel.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I think I did a whole video about this on my channel. I think it's called something like "Where is the Tower of Babel?" Babel. Sorry. And it's I go into some depth about this story, where it came from, what it's about, who wrote it, when, and why. And the Tower of Babel, Delay, plays a very pivotal role in the creation of this story in Genesis chapter 11. I'm just going to read a little bit here. This is a very brief summary about this artifact that I just described.
So real quick before you start, there's a couple of things. One, Pibblepunk half dog half canine for $2 says James Patterson ass half page chapter length. Yes. Also, I do want to point out that his 10th footnote here is in fact a Herodotus Histories, which, okay, good on Bodhi. I'm glad that he didn't cite some secondary source itself quoting Herodotus, because, yeah, Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $20 says pizza, and more importantly, puppy, with a Godzilla, a Carmen, a Mothra, a Carmen, and a Ghidorah. So we'll take a drink. Thank you very much.
Still laughing at Pibblepunk's comment. James Patterson ass half page chapter length.
And then Roshina, can I get an Uwu Keller for $1.99 says Babel, B-A-E space B-E-L-L. Yeah,
Bay.
Bay.
Thought you were fam. Turns out you're just Bay.
I found out,
All right.
what was it, 2 nights ago, that apparently Bay also works in Hindi.
Nice.
Shit, you were there when I found that out, Vishanti. It was in the song
Well,
lyrics.
it's just because they used it as They will frequently pull American or
It's true,
English
yeah.
slang words in, so...
Yeah, I know. I don't actually know if it
Yeah.
works in just spoken.
That was a good
All right.
movie, by the way.
We watched Control the other night. So go ahead with your quote.
Settle down, children. So, why is this artifact so captivating? Because of what the inscription says, which Bodhi never managed to get to.
Right over.
This is Andrew George's translation. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, am I. In order to complete E Temen Enki and E Ud Mi Imen Anki, I mobilized all countries everywhere, each and every ruler who had been raised to prominence over all the people of the world, loved by Marduk, from the upper sea to the lower sea, the distant nations, the teeming people of the world, kings of remote mountains and far-flung islands. The base I filled in to make a high terrace. I built their structures with bitumen and baked brick throughout. I completed it, raising its top to the heavens, making it gleam bright as the sun. Does that sound a little bit familiar? Because it should. The inscription itself brings to mind the story from Genesis 11 about a tower in Babylon. And this is my translation. All the earth was one tongue, and the same words. And it so happened when they set out from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. Then the men said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly." So they had brick for stone and pitch for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower, the top of which will reach the sky. And we will make a name for ourselves so that we will not be dispersed over the face of the earth." That's verses 1 to 4. Our attention is fixed from this short inscription on several parallels in the biblical story of the Tower of Babel. Nebuchadnezzar dedicates several lines to describing his mobilization and conscription of labor from all the countries everywhere, from the upper sea to the lower sea, the distant nations, the teeming people of the world, kings of remote mountains and far-flung islands. The writer of Genesis 11 similarly opens his own story with a gathering of all the earth in the land of Shinar. Nebuchadnezzar speaks of building with pitch and baked bricks and of raising the top of Etemenenki to the sky. The two great innovations in Genesis 11 are the casting of bricks in fire and of the use of pitch for mortar. The gathered multitudes likewise brag of building a tower, the top of which will reach the sky. So while they're that's I won't bother with that last sentence, but I hope everyone can hear what's going on here and see, I think, rather clearly part of the point of this story in Genesis chapter 11. I think it's in direct response to things that Nebuchadnezzar is doing or is known to have done with regards to his massive renovation projects, which didn't just include Etemenenki in his time as the ruler of Babylon. One of the things that I draw a lot of attention to in the video that I made about this story is how throughout other texts in the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar is pictured as, what's the word here? Almost like a trope or an analog for human pride, arrogance, overstepping. There's a whole story in Daniel chapter 4 about, this. And I think that's a big part of what's at work in this story. This is an affront, yes, to Yahweh's ideal, which is dispersion, but it's also a result of human arrogance. Let's make a name for ourselves. And Nebuchadnezzar is the perfect example of that.
Do you think at any point Bodhi will interact with the fact that the artifact itself presents the building of the tower that he thinks is the Tower of Babel as a project not of a single city, but of a world in which there are already multiple nations living in scattered locations all across the world that Nebuchadnezzar is using his hegemony over to fund the building of this temple. You think he's going to interact with that at all?
Given that he's getting his information from Discovery News, I suspect no.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Fade to Gray, don't build a Tower of Babel for $10, says, for the pupper with Carmen emojis flanking it, and an AIG is a bag of dicks emoji, so we'll take a drink, thank you very much. Then Mark Agamotto1313 Smith for $20 says, technically the grass in your lawn is tall enough to reach the sky with a Ghidorah. It's true. The sky just starts when the ground stops.
Thumbing up that one.
Yes. All right. Ooh, we are extremely close to that free pizza. All right, so let's see what the next chapter is, because we may or may not want to bother with it. Because remember, we're not going through every chapter, because a lot of them are just, I don't care. What was the purpose of the tower?
What was the purpose?
Okay. I mean, so here's the thing, right? Because it does seem to have different purposes based on whether you're reading it from the biblical script, or for the biblical text, or whether you're reading from, like, actual, like, Babylonian text. Because in the Babylonian text, it's like, well, this is a temple for a specific god that we're raising for this particular purpose. Whereas in the Bible, it's saying, well, basically, this is just a monument to all our sins, to crib a line from Halo 2.
I mean, I think we should take our cues from the biblical text here, in terms of right, like, because this is what Bodhi's doing. He wants to know what the purpose of the tower is based on his reading of the biblical text, and it tells us very explicitly what the purpose here is in verse 4. We will make a name for ourselves so that we will not be dispersed over the face of the whole world.
Yeah. So
there you go.
Vishani, you want me to start? I think that was a sure. Even though the Bible records the general reason the tower was built, people have suggested a number of additional specific purposes. These need to be evaluated. All right, you know what, Bodhi? That's reasonable. Like, even if you're going to take the Bible literally, it doesn't mean that you have to say that it tells you everything that's true about the particular story. Like, Bodhi would probably say something like, the Bible never counts Jesus' fingers for us, but we can probably assume 10 fingers. It's probably a good assumption. You know what? Fair enough, Bodhi. Let's see what respected Jewish historian Josephus suggested. Okay, once again, we got to preface it by exactly who Josephus is. He wrote, "For the world would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach." Let's see. For that, he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach. Does he mean the rain? Like it wouldn't rain on it because it's above the rain clouds or something? I'm not even sure what that means.
I wonder.
Oh no, he's gonna go. So later,
rain clouds.
Okay. So hold on. To survive another global flood, I think what Josephus is suggesting, at least according to Bodhi, is that it was going to be high enough that flood waters wouldn't hit it. Which, okay, sure,
maybe.
Josephus commented that the tower was built in order to survive another flood, to escape any such repeat judgment from God. But if that were the case, why build it in a floodplain? I mean, I don't know. The plain of Schøyen are flooded regularly, though measures have been taken to reduce that today. Yes, called dams. Thank you. Also, this neglect. Why is this a separate paragraph, Bodhi? Bodhi, what are you doing to me here?
Right.
This doesn't need to be a separate paragraph, my guy. Also, this neglects the promise of God not to send the flood to destroy all life as he had previously stated. Genesis. Blah, 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 blah. Of course, the people were ignoring God's command, so it would not be out of character for them to also ignore his promise. Okay. Dr. John Gill, a leading Baptist expositor and Hebraist from the 1700s.
Yeah, that's the best source for this.
Wow, yeah. I don't know if I could possibly find someone I would care less about in terms of what this story is supposed to mean than a Baptist expositor and Hebraist from the 1700s.
From 300 years ago.
Yeah,
wow.
Oh my God.
Wow. Okay, let's see what a 300-year-old Baptist source says about the meaning of this. DM Denver Canada Wing for $2 says, "Were you there, Joe?" Thank you very much. I will add that. That actually might put us over. I'm not sure. So close. It is generally thought that what led them to this. It is generally thought that what led them What led them to it was to secure them from another flood they might be in fear of, but this seems not likely since they had the covenant and oath of God that the earth should never be destroyed by water anymore, and besides, had this been the thing in view, they would have not chosen a plain to build on, a plain that lay between the two greatest rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, but rather one of the highest mountains and hills that they could have found. Nor could a building of brick be sufficient defense against a force of water, as the waters of the flood were, and besides, but few at most could be preserved at the top of the tower, to which in such a case they would have betook themselves. Okay. Do you guys care too much about this? Because I kind of losing.
I don't, except to point out that one of the reasons why people like Bodhi love them some, pre-modern theology and biblical scholarship is because so many of these guys writing before the 1800s continued to have this strong commitment to finding history in the text in places where it just does not exist.
Yep. Also, I gotta say, Metageeky Platypus Warlock said, Josephus, Jesus had a committee of stepdads. Nice. And also, that put us over the Bent Gets Free Pizza line. So, Bent is going to be getting some free pizza. I will consult with him about when exactly he wants that, because, we don't want to be off picking up the dog when pizza comes. So, it might be a end of the day, or it might even be a tomorrow thing. But, yeah, Bent will be getting some free pizza. And I will take down the free pizza indicator, because it takes up a lot of space. But, yeah. That this whole fundraiser thing, that was my project for like a day, was just creating that. It's done in Blender, and I was looking for something that had exactly the functionality I wanted, and I couldn't find anything, and I was like, damn it, I'll program it myself in Blender with nodes.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
Exactly.
Clips on Infinity Gauntlet.
No, I use one of the power gauntlets from Nintendo, right? Just like the hack. Yeah, that's how you
That's
do
old
it.
school.
It is. I always wanted one of those, but then I also realized after I saw one of my friends try to use one to play like Mario, I was like, there's no way I could ever play a game like this, so I'm just gonna... Roshan, a polydactyl Jesus Keller. It's for $4.99. The Bible doesn't say he didn't have more than 10 fingers either, so, but the Tigris and Euphrates of the Garden of Eden weren't the same rivers as we call them post-fall, so... Maybe?
I would say yes, they were.
Yeah, I think they're the same river. People have made arguments that maybe the Garden of Eden wasn't on Earth, and therefore there was a paradise version of the Tigris and Euphrates. In fact, the Quran is pretty specific in saying that paradise wasn't on Earth. But then again, it also doesn't identify, known Earth landmarks as part of paradise. So,
I think the Zohar also says that the Garden of Eden was like a, I guess what we would call a pocket dimension or a higher plane. Yeah,
but also got to remember these sources are much, much later than the biblical texts.
Yeah, I would say, just based on my reading of the biblical text, that the geographical description of the Garden of Eden is an on-the-nose indicator that this is a mythical account. Yep. And I would say that some of the rivers, like you'll notice, the one of them appears to actually flow in a circle, which is something that rivers don't do.
Yeah.
So it's a depiction of what people imagine their world to look like. But of course, they're just getting a lot of this patently wrong, because come on, they're ancient cartographers. They don't possess the wherewithal to do this stuff yet.
Yeah. Although I do think
no one has ever located the other two rivers. People are always like, oh yeah, it was totally in the Middle East because there's the Tigris and Euphrates. There were 4 rivers.
I do think that...
and they flowed out of Eden.
Yes.
So
I do think there's a fair chance, though, that if you were to ask the author, could I go to a location?
Oh,
could I walk to a location that would be the location where the Garden of Eden was? That he would have said yes. I'm not positive where it is, but I think you could walk there. So
I agree. And even then, wherever it was, you still wouldn't be able to find it accurately because the flood destroyed everything That was the point of the
Or-
narrative.
Yeah, but
or Vishanti, is
but
it
they
actually one of the SCP hero suggestions? Oh, and we got Mopra.
I doubt they had that kind of conception though either, because my
SCP?
suspicion is
Yeah, probably
that no, I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
My suspicion is that the people who wrote these texts just imagined that after a global flood, everything that was, the geographical markers that were there in the first place are still there in the same place.
The reason
They just got filled up with water and it went back down.
Honestly,
right? Like
what I use to support that for me is the Sumerian king list that has before and after the flood, where it has kings from before the flood that seem to be kings of the same cities as after the flood. It seems like it didn't even destroy the physical locations of the cities. It just killed everyone, came back down, and then people were like, oh, hey, cool, these cities are empty. I guess we'll fill them up now.
Like, seriously, don't think too hard about this. It's not worth your time.
But hey, it is the 1 hour mark just about, so we are going to take a quick break. I'm going to refresh this margarita a little bit.
Coming back with wine.
Yeah. And we will be back in just a few minutes. In the meantime, please enjoy the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind, who again is getting half the proceeds from this stream for at least the first day. So we'll catch you on the other side of the break. Okay, we are back. Thank you very much, everyone, for sticking with us. I do appreciate it. So now that we're back, I want to say now, especially more than most days, that I really appreciate all the support, you guys. You are helping keep this, you're You're helping to soften the financial blow from a dog who needs some serious medical attention. You're also making it possible for this channel to actually function. And if this channel is something you like, if you're enjoying your time here and you think this is something that you want to support, us, pointing back pseudoscience, in this case, pseudo-history, things like that, then there are some great ways. There's the Patreon. There's the channel memberships. Patreon has a link in the description. You can get a 15% discount if you go annual over there. It starts at $1 a month. You can get access to videos, that early access for 5-6 months. You can get access to the special Discord server that's just for supporters. The same is true for the memberships. That starts at $1.99. There are more perks at higher tiers. There's no discount for annual over on YouTube. It's either monthly or nothing. But if a monthly or an annual pledge isn't your thing, we have a merch store. There is an Amazon wish list. Also, both Kip and Vishanti's channels are linked. Go click over there. Make sure you're subscribed. Also, Vishanti has a wish list and a Patreon, and I believe Kip also has a Patreon linked on his channel.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to support any of these two specifically, directly, that's a great way to do that. And if you do not have the money to afford to support anyone, please don't. Only do this if you can afford it. And like I said before, and like is in the pinned chat message, today, half of the proceed from this stream is going to go to Bent for assistance with the rather hefty veterinarian bill that he had to pay for Carmen, who is the dog that we have the emoji of. She is, originally that emoji was just to make fun of creationists who just happen to hate small dogs for some reason, which is just ubiquitous among creationists, and I don't know why.
That's crazy, eh?
It's really weird. They're constantly saying, like, well, Chihuahuas aren't really dogs, but...
Right.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. But yeah, today, that is also the dog who is, in fact, currently... Actually, probably right now, this instant... having some surgery performed under anesthesia. So it's not a cheap thing. And so, yeah, that's why half of this is going there. I will be... Ben is planning to get me the receipt. And like I said, if people want, I can get that receipt up on the community tab to make sure that you guys know that there actually is a real expense that's being paid for. And so, yeah, if you're feeling generous and you want to help poor little Carmen, this is a great way to do it. And if we need to, Ben may end up setting up a GoFundMe if you want to help directly that way, but that's not set up right now. And then Regios...
Sorry, can I just say, Vadim Redchenko, my dog over there, he looks serene now, but rest assured, he will eat your face for saying bad things about Chihuahuas, because his best buddy is my Chihuahua.
Aww. Well, I just took 4 drinks because Regios just gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So thank you very much. That also puts us past the fancy avatar number. We could get to the Dapper Tutu number. You could force me to be the one wearing the tutu for the Christmas stream. So I'll keep going with 5. 6. Robert Madewell says dachshunds aren't dogs. Well, guess what? The other dog here is mostly dachshund. It's a dachshund mix. So 7. Ooh, that was a big sip right there. That was a lot of tequila. Okay. 8, 9, and 10. Yeah, I mean, this is basically, I just poured a half a glass of tequila and added some prickly pear syrup and some lime juice. So, like, this is at least half just straight up tequila in this glass. His Zotness for $10 says, my border collies and I want to help. Well, thank you so much. Look, you guys are so amazing. When there's a need, you guys really do come together. And I really appreciate that. And, look, you guys know, Bent he's a disabled veteran. The VA recently, well, actually not that recently at this point, but they basically just removed a very nice career that he had in the medical industry by basically just not doing the paperwork he needed to get accommodations. And so he was told by his job that they just wouldn't provide any accommodations because he didn't have the paperwork for them, which meant he couldn't go back to work. So, and that's because the VA doctor threw his paperwork in the trash.
Jeez.
So that's what Ben has been dealing with for a couple years now. He's still trying to get his disability upped with the VA because of numerous service-connected problems, and that's everyone's dragging their heels on that. And so when things like this hit, right, it's a lot. And so you guys helping out really does mean a lot. And so, yeah, stay tuned. There might be more fundraiser streams for Bent, or he might put up a GoFundMe. I'm not sure. We're figuring all that out. All right, so Dr. Gill rightly points out problems with this view, and that view being that the tower was built to escape floodwaters. Which, I mean, okay, do you guys care about the problems with this view? Because I can think of a lot of
idolatry.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Probably. I mean, he's probably right. The fame. I think he's probably got this. I think he's steering in the right direction, but I don't think Bodhi understands.
I don't think so
what
either.
This means.
But also, I mean, yeah, was Nebuchadnezzar trying to spread his fame across the world by building a really cool temple? Yeah, probably. That's a big way that monumental architecture works.
Yeah.
So, Roshan of Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $4.99 says AIG is the blind bag you stick your hand into after having a lot of tequila. Oh no, we'll take a drink for that.
Oof.
And then Mapleson has gifted 5 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. We will add that to the counter. And I'll take 5 drinks. And let's see. We'll scroll down a little bit and see if there's anything else.
Astronomical observation. But then he mentions the South American Incan temples and the Indian. What is that?
I mean, that is a South American structure.
Yeah.
It's the Tikal Temple in Guatemala. I mean, look.
Very, very contextually appropriate, Bodhi.
Well, so I'm going to give him this at least, right? Both the Mesopotamians and various South American civilizations were building religious structures that did also have like calendrical significance in terms of like knowing when to do things like inspect your levees in Mesopotamia, or when to plant crops or things like that. And so there is a connection there in terms of just the practical need to keep track of the seasons and being able to build architecture that was aligned to various astronomical events that could help you determine that. So I don't think that's completely crazy. I don't think he's going with, the ancient astronauts gave them both the idea to build these pyramid temples. Like, I don't think that's where Bodhi's going. But like, yeah, could some of the temples in Mesopotamia have had astronomical or astrological functions? Yeah, sure, why not? I don't know. Sacrifice. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you do in a temple, right? That's kind of what temples are for. Is the reason that there's an altar at the center of or the most important part of temples is because of the sacrifice. So yeah, of course it was for sacrifice. Lizzie B for $2 says the VA has always sucked. My father is a vet. Yeah, look, it's pretty awful. Bent had a very nice job working in the medical field, helping to diagnose cancers, and then it all just went away. Just kind of went away when he needed some help from the VA. So, isn't this also Peru? Okay, but those are terraces for farming, Bodhi. Why are we looking at this? Burial, Bodhi. This is a farm. What do you? Oh my! I'm taking a drink for Bodhi, not knowing what a farm is. Oh my goodness! People don't build terraces in mountains because it's just a temple, Bodhi. That's a whole lot of work for that. You just build a small temple.
I think the next one
look at this.
He's Egypt. Yes, the pyramids.
Yeah,
Burial.
yeah. I don't think.
Okay.
Wait, are there ziggurats in Egypt? I don't remember any ziggurats in Egypt. A stepped pyramid and a ziggurat are not the same thing, Bodhi.
No.
Ziggurats are a kind of stepped pyramid, but not every stepped pyramid is a ziggurat. Roshan of Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $9.99 says, I still find it weird that after the languages were confused at the Tower of Babel, all the groups simultaneously acquired extremely different cultures. Yeah, that is a big thing, right? Like, why does everyone have like such widely diverse cultures after what should have been like a monoculture thing going on?
It does feel like the proponents of this view haven't really thought this out.
Well, yeah, because it was just an ideology for why different nations have different languages that was just made up. Like, okay, Bodhi, there are historical kernels in this, but fundamentally, this is just a story that was made up one day. There's no good reason to think that there was a historical scattering of peoples and changing of the language. Savage Cobra for $4.99 says, fertilizer for the fertilizer god, manure for the manure throne.
Oh my god. So can I just also point out here that in this sentence before one of the sentences before the burial section, he uses this terrible story about Saul from 1 Samuel 15. Recall Saul, when he offered a sacrifice, claimed to be godly, and yet he was defying God's word. So I mean, this is an awful story from the Bible, and he actually he points out here what the problem is, and this is a strange thing for it just still baffles me that anyone wants to hang their hat in any redeemable way on this. The reason why God was angry and the defiance that Saul committed was by not killing everyone.
Mm-hmm. Saul didn't genocide hard enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
This isn't the flex you think it is, Bodhi.
Wait, are we at 73? Jeez, no wonder I feel like this. The drink count is at 73.
It's a lot.
Woo! I'm supposed to go back to the vet later today. I'm going to be in the passenger seat today. Look, I'm only there to hold Carmen so that she doesn't like jump all over Ben while he's driving. So,
hopefully you'll be sober enough to do that much.
Oh yeah, I definitely will.
Okay.
That doesn't take a whole lot. Plus, she prefers to sit with me anyway. I think she likes me more than Ben. I went out to order to get a ride back to the house so I could be here on time. And when I came back in to let Ben know that it was, it'd be a few minutes, just so he knows what's up. He was like, "Oh, she got so upset when you left, and now she's so happy that you're back, but you're gonna leave again." I'm like, "Aw, poor Carmen." Yeah. Also, anytime I open the door to my bedroom, she runs over and tries to jump in the bed like, "Oh, are we gonna go take a nap now?" It's like, no, we're not. I'm just in here to grab a book. Come on, let's go. She loves beds just in general. Was it a place of burial? No, probably not. Okay, so here's one thing. I do think this is an interesting computer rendering of what Stonehenge might have looked like when it was originally constructed.
Pretty cool. And
I think, do I have high confidence that this is accurate? No, but it's very cool and seems plausible to me, so I appreciate that, Bodhi. I doubt that Bodhi was the one who made it, but that's okay. All right, so let's see.
What we know. What do we know? I'm kind of interested to know what we know.
All right, before we find out, though, My Unfinished Journey for $6.66 says, "Hail Daps, Vish, and Dr. Kill, and lots of scritches to Carmen." Oh, she's going to get so many scritches, you don't even know. It's just going to be all scritches. As long as she's not just knocked out from the sedatives. Jasper Nienhui Nijenhuis? I'm sorry, man. You put a J in the middle of a word that isn't English, and I have no clue what it's supposed to be. So
we had this discussion last night in Apology is Live.
Yeah.
Use it as a yes sound, and more often than not, you're going to be correct.
I would think it's probably Nienhus.
Nienhus? Maybe that's it. But anyway, so. Jasper for €6 says, "Have a safe vet trip. AIG is a bag of sausage dogs without the dogs." We'll take a drink for that. Thank you. No, look, I drove there because Ben wasn't really up for it in the first place, but he's good to drive now, and he'll drive on the way back, and I'll just hold her. So, yep. We tried putting her in the back seat, and when we were leaving, and the very first thing she did was jump into the passenger side seat up front, and then start to try to come and crawl up my chest while I'm trying to back out of the driveway. Kyle Pratt for $4.99 says, "For average folks like ancient people groups you're aware of, were the metaphysical benefits of monumental burials, were there metaphysical benefits for the monumental burial of leaders?" So that's going to vary based on culture, right? So, in Egypt, there was an idea that, they had a complicated version of the soul concept where you were made of different parts, right? But some parts of that personhood of yours would exit the body and need to be able to find its way back in. And so monuments could help it locate your body so it could get back into your body. There were also ideas of like architectural things that could do things like lead your spirit towards the heavens, right? It's one of the reasons why pyramid shapes are popular in Egypt. But then in other places where there's just sort of a general idea of like the grave, which is something you get a lot in like Hebrew and related societies, there's an idea that as long as your name is remembered, you have some kind of existence that is sort of conscious, and that it's important to remember your name and the names of your ancestors and whatnot, and that could help with a monumental burial because, hey, who's buried there? This guy. Okay, well, now I remember his name. But then, it's not clear what all of the cultures thought, and we have a lot of cultures from that time that didn't leave us written records because they didn't have written language. And so we have, like Bronze Age and Iron Age burials from like Central Europe. What was their idea? We don't know. We know that people were buried with grave goods frequently. Is that because they thought they could use them in the afterlife? Maybe. That's plausible. Is it because that was just a tradition and it was a way to, remember that they were gone by sacrificing some of the wealth they had accumulated, and now you didn't get that, and it was I don't know. So it varies, and there's no one answer. And also we know that we don't have the answer for every culture because we just don't have written records from all of them. So, yeah. And also for average folks, the same benefits you would think would accrue to them, but because they're average folks, they don't get big monumental architecture, so they don't get those benefits most of the time. Like, even in ancient Egypt, burial was not what most people, mummification was not afforded by most people. Like, you couldn't afford to have your dad mummified if you were just like some random farmer. So he generally wasn't. So you lose out on those benefits. But it's also possible that those people had a different concept of the afterlife than what we get in texts written by the elites. Because you also have to remember that the religious ideas and ideas about the afterlife and the gods that are carried forward by the elites who run temples and run the governments are not necessarily reflective of the beliefs of, your average farmer. Like, we even know from like the period when we're getting some centralization of the cult of Yahweh in Jerusalem, right? Like, so around the time of like Josiah, that there's not widespread acceptance and following of like Torah edicts, right? We're finding lots of Israelite villages that have pig bones and don't seem to have any problem with that. And then slowly over time, that starts to retreat, that practice into like the hinterlands. But so basically, was the average like inhabitant of Judah, who probably would be the descendants of, the ancestors of like, people we would now call Jews, did they have the same theology as King Josiah? No, they didn't. They absolutely didn't. So it's very complicated, and I don't know that there's a good way to answer that question other than to say it was complicated.
There's actually I bring this verse up a lot in 2 Kings chapter 23, the story of Josiah's reforms. Something that he does when he clears out all the other religious paraphernalia of the Jerusalem temple, which itself is pretty interesting. There's a lot of shit in there that he has to get rid of, right? To make sure it's just a place for Yahweh. But then it says when he takes the Asherah pole out, he grinds it up, then he burns it. Then he takes the ashes and he scatters them on the graves of the common people. So, what?
Said that's aggressive.
Mm-hmm. But it also tells you who it is that's trying to perpetuate Asherah worship at the time. It's the commoners.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the king basically just given the big old middle finger to all those simple folk living around.
There's an analog right now that you can use to compare is the ever-growing cult of Santa Muerte in Mexico.
Yeah, the Catholic
Church is very officially like, no, this isn't cool. Stop doing it. And all the just like average Mexicans are like, okay, what if I do anyway?
Mm-hmm. What are you gonna do? Like literally, what are you gonna do? You gonna excommunicate all of us? Who's gonna pay your bills?
Turns out
Yeah.
folk religion's real popular, and it doesn't really matter what the self-proclaimed authorities have to say about it.
Yep.
Nope.
It's almost like that's why it's called folk religion, because it's the religion of the folk or the people. All right. So what we know, we know for sure that the tower's primary purpose was to keep people from scattering and to make a name for themselves. And it obviously served that purpose because the Lord had to intervene to confuse the languages to make the people scatter. Well, we know that that's the primary purpose according to Genesis.
According to the narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
No historical ziggurat had that purpose as its primary purpose.
I think this is if we read all the way through, I think this is part of his point actually, which is funny to me.
Some may think.
I'll say something about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Some may think that the building project itself was what kept people from scattering, and it was not related to any other underlying purpose. However, this is problematic. If the construction project was what kept people from scattering, i.e., merely building a tower, then upon completion, the people would have naturally scattered. There would have been no need for a confusion of languages on God's part. He knows all things, of course, but God's intervention was necessary, so it was not merely building the tower that kept people around, but the tower did indeed have an underlying purpose. But
I just think you're thinking way too hard about
Yeah.
this, Cody.
Yeah, it's not that deep, Brody. It's really not.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not. And here's where I think maybe, something like the Tower of Babel stele can help us understand what this story is about. Because, I mean, I agree on the face of it that this is kind of absurd, right? And that's kind of the point, right? like this story is addressing it's constructing an absurdity about some things that were actually going on, and I mean that's a clear indicator to us for in the first place that what we think this story is about on the face of it is not what the story is actually about. You have to think through, you have to read through the text and pay attention to like the literary clues that are in there. And I forgot point number 2, so I'll take a drink.
Well, Savage Cobra, who's been a member for 25 months and is at the amniote level, says, like how upper class and clergy in early America weren't down for premarital sex, yet something like a third of women went to the altar pregnant. So, I mean, there is certainly that, and it has always been the case that religions who have said no premarital sex have always contended with the fact that a rather small portion of the population actually managed to hold to that ideal of theirs. If we're saying,
I mean, I regularly read Mexican parish records for like baptisms, and the sheer volume of hijo natural versus hijo legítimo, meaning your parents were married in the church versus your parents weren't married in the church versus at all or at all.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So they still baptize the kids, but it's one of those things where this wasn't like, oh, it's like 1 in every 200. No, it's like sometimes it's every other one.
And there's also the question though, like, does that mean that the parents don't think that there's a theological or ethical problem with what they're doing? Not necessarily. People sometimes have premarital sex and then feel bad about it because of their religious affiliation. So
turns out human beings really like doing the do.
It's true. I mean, it is kind of chemically hardwired to be fun, so
Mm.
But
and when your religious institution du jour is like, no, you can't use birth control. Actually, well, kids are going to come out of that.
So one actually example that might be interesting is that around the time when basically Constantinople is under siege and asking for a crusade from Rome, there's a unification council that occurs, and so a whole bunch of Eastern bishops are invited over to have a reunification council, and everyone votes and agrees to have a reunification, and there's terms set out. And then when all those bishops got back in the East, basically everyone just told them to go F themselves, and no, we're not reunified with Rome. And they were like, okay, sorry, Rome, I guess we're not. And then Rome's like, but the bishops voted. And they're like, yeah, but literally no one agrees with us, so oops. And that is why the Catholic Church considers that council to be an ecumenical council that should have fixed the schism, and the Eastern Orthodox Church does not consider it to be an ecumenical council. So
It's so funny though. That reminds me of like the South Korean thing where the new leader's like, "Hey, by the way, there's a military coup," and the entire country was like, "No, there's not."
Mm-mm. Nope. Turns out,
and he goes, "You're right. My bad."
And now he's finally been impeached after what I think is a second impeachment vote.
Wow. Before you turn the page, something else that I noticed here is that Bodhi has employed the convention of using small caps for the Lord here. And now I'm not sure if this is something he's consistently done up to this point, but I'm paying attention.
Okay, but the weird thing is
that looks like a copy paste. That to me.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
So the reason that the big caps, small caps for the Lord is a convention is because in English Bibles that indicates that the underlying Hebrew is Yahweh, which is why you don't see it in the New Testament. But there's no underlying Hebrew unless Bodhi composed this text in Hebrew, which I don't think he did. So there's no good reason for him to use this convention here.
This, I strongly suspect, A, he either doesn't know what that convention's for and thinks it's just a fancy way to write God, or B, it's a copy-paste, and he
just didn't change the formatting.
I'm starting to think that you're absolutely right about this, Vish.
I mean, this is already a profoundly sloppy text, right? Like, this is
Yeah.
not a well-written.
I mean, it's
or
not
well-organized.
God is, but it's pretty,
Yeah.
pretty loose.
I mean, sure, we've seen worse, right? I mean, look, we read.
Yes.
I've read through some of Raw Matt's quote-unquote books. Yeah.
Ordained Essene.
Yeah. Kip, do you know about Raw Matt's books?
And I know who Raw Matt is. I didn't realize that he's actually written books.
Well, that's the thing.
Just another
calling them books is a bit of a stretch.
Are they books in the same way that Praise I Am writes books?
Well, I'm not sure because I haven't read any of those. One thing is, Vadim Radchenko says, Bodhi is fluent in pre-Yiddish. Yeah, maybe. Maybe he's fluent in pre-Yiddish. So Raw Matt over the years has collected a number of things he's written into Google Drive documents, right? Google Docs files, right? Including hyperlinks to where he found things, just weirdly formatted pictures, including many, many pictures that are under a lot of copyright protection, like just straight up stills from Disney movies and things like that. And so he and his best buddy Donnie decided to collect some of these by theme and publish them as self-published books. But rather than doing any special like reformatting for like a book format and checking to see if your sources are truncated hyperlinks that can't be printed versus actual sources that you cited properly. They just uploaded the like an image-based version of the Google Doc pages as the pages for the document. So if you were to buy one of these books physically or even download them as ebooks, they're full of sources that are just truncated hyperlinks that can't be clicked on because they're not actually saved as hyperlinks even in the ebook versions. And so there's just a source that'll say something like www.nature.com/ar ... and there's nothing I can do with this. And also so he's
how do you print a website?
Right,
like
basically.
Robert Madewell. He just printed out his website.
Yeah. He also famously has a blog post.
His webistes.
Raw Matt also famously has a blog post where he complains that Morganucodon, a proto-mammal from the Permian, didn't have molars, while putting in the blog pictures of Morganucodon's molars. So that was fun. Savage Cobra for $1.99 says, KJV get book title. Yes.
Exactly. All right, everybody, we're going pasta mining.
Oh my goodness, the pasta mining. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $10 says
Calvo.
Or that idiot that Logic did a review of. Yeah, Armando Calvo. Can't remember his name. Yep.
Armando.
Don't want to be there. Oh, sorry. He didn't want to know. Just remember something about the universe is sentient.
Great ahead.
Yeah. And there's a Ghidorah, so we'll take a drink there. Yeah, they actually Logic and Armando had a stream together. Basically to prove that Armando's friend existed because Logic and I were both like, this sounds like a fake guy. It sounds like a guy that doesn't exist. But no, he exists, so hey, good for him. Alright, so what did the tower look like? I don't care. It definitely didn't look like that. It was a ziggurat. It didn't look
like that.
Look, Bodhi's going to come to the same conclusion.
No.
Yep. There's Bodhi's
Hey, there
conclusion.
you go.
All right, Bodhi,
Mhm.
congrats, you got this one right. This is what, to the degree to which there's a historical.
He doesn't.
Sorry.
He doesn't spell it right though. Sadly, Etemenentki.
Oh yeah, there's no
dude.
T.
It's not. No.
Oh
And you have to hyphenate a lot of this stuff too, right?
yeah.
So.
Goop23 for $2 says you just have to click harder. Okay, that's what Donnie actually said to me. He
Oh my
announced
God,
these books.
incredible.
He announced these books in a community post, right? And I was familiar with them because I'd gotten a hold of copies. And so I pointed out, like, hey man, a lot of your sources are truncated hyperlinks and they're not usable. And my goal with this was to say, maybe you should update your book so that it doesn't do this. Right? My goal was to help, while also, not being too pushy about it. And so he just responded back with like a laughing emoji and said, you just have to click harder. And I was just like, oh my God, man.
Jasper Temple Farm the Mighty, he didn't just, Amaldo Calvo didn't just get his book published. Remember, he got it copyrighted.
It's true.
He
And
checked with the copyright.
yeah, he did check with the copyright
symbol on it so that it proves that it's totally
It's not
totally
plagiarized.
legit, not plagiarized,
It-
right?
It's a one weird trick that professors don't want you to know, but if you put a circle with a C in it, you have not plagiarized anything, no matter what. You could just take an entire book, rip the cover off, scratch out the author's name, put your name, and then put a circle with a C in it, and it's no longer plagiarism. Now that's yours.
So taking us back into context here, I'd like to point out that this reconstruction that Bodhi has published of Etemenenki is accurate. Importantly, this again contradicts Herodotus's account of whatever tower it was that Nebuchadnezzar was building. Notice that
There's no spiral
seven-
staircase.
no spiral staircase,
And
7 tiers,
7
not
tiers
8.
instead of 8, yeah.
That's, so
Yeah.
good job, Bodhi.
And
Mhm.
why-
Oh my
why-
goodness!
why-
No!
Bodhi,
Why
what is-
are we doing
What is
this?
the goal of
Why?
this?
It's not a cigarette, dude.
I'm just gonna take a drink
Oh,
for
for
yeah, take a drink if you haven't already. Bodhi,
A big one this
what are
time.
you doing? Look, I get making the comparison in sense of like these buildings had somewhat similar functions, but they're built by cultures thousands of years apart and tens of thousands of miles apart.
But I guess that's it. He doesn't think so, right? Like he thinks that all of these ideas
Oh yeah, because they all come from
had
that.
to stem from.
Oh
Tower of
yeah.
Babel.
Oh, I hate that so much.
Right? I know, and it's
Yep.
not like it's so dumb that people
It's just
that people can't imagine that inventing the wheel wasn't done by just one guy in one place, right?
Look,
Yeah.
There-
this is the creationist version of like the ancient aliens.
It
Like
is.
there was an original
Yeah.
culture
It
that
is.
spread through. They like
Oh,
Look,
it's-
Look, Native Mexicans
It's
couldn't
so
figure
is.
out how to make rock go on top of other rock. They
No,
had to be taught
or
by
why we should do that, right?
my
Oh.
goodness.
Hey, this is just generally for everyone out there. Humans have many times independently figured out how to put one rock on top of other rock. It's not that crazy of a
Yeah,
thing for
it's
humans
not
to figure
that hard.
out. Yeah. Now, granted,
also-
the degree to which they put rock on top of other rock can be very impressive, but the very basic idea that you could do that, not really rocket science.
No.
Yeah. Also, I want to note that the ingenuity of the Mexica and the Mayans, because one of these step pyramids, you can stand a certain distance away and clap, and the building is engineered such that when the clap echoes off the wall, it sounds like a Quetzal chirp.
It's very cool.
Wow.
It is very
Wild.
cool.
So when I say it's very
Yeah.
easy to figure out how to put rock on top of rock, that is not to negate the ingenuity and awesomeness of the engineering.
No.
It's just to
No.
say, like, the idea that these could be arrived at independently by different people groups, not that far
It's not
fetched.
just listen, it's not just that there was one really insightful, intelligent group of people. It's that there were a whole fucking lot of them.
Yeah, humans
And-
generally.
Okay. Jillian Wren in the chat says, no, it's rock science.
Okay, we got a couple super chats. Jasper Temple Farm the Mighty. Oh no, with the terraces. For €6 says, the most convenient way to stack rocks so they won't fall over. Yeah, basically, it's a pyramid shape, right? Like, even if you just throw rocks into a pile, the higher the pile gets, the closer it's going to approximate a cone. Like, this is something people will notice. Roshan, a polydactyl Jesus killer for $4.99 says, does he think the ziggurat equals large step-like formations? Yes, he seems to. Yeah.
Yes.
He's basically got the same definition for pyramid as Graham Hancock has for pyramid, which is a series of terraces leading to a point. By which definition, okay, I guess lots of things are ziggurats, even things that clearly aren't. Guptu3 for $2 says, not really rocket science. Science, got it. Very nice. You guys are great.
You are.
I might have one of the funniest audiences in all of YouTube.
Yeah, the hardest that I laugh in live streams is almost without fail this live chat.
Yeah.
It's sure not mine, but yes.
Yes.
Okay, but to be fair, you also have a lot of cool scholars on there that ask really like insightful questions about technical things, and I appreciate that. So
Pip's live streams of late have tended
finally.
to bring out the kooks.
Here is
So-
actually, I think this is what's on my thumbnail.
Oh yeah.
It is. It totally is.
So this is a relatively good representation of a ruined ziggurat that would have probably looked a lot like this when it was intact.
Yeah.
So
And like seriously, look at how big that thing is, right?
oh yeah, like these are
it's-
regular
Yeah.
sized stairs.
Gigantic, right?
Yep.
It large.
Mhm. And you can see the
Way to
brick,
go.
the brick construction
Right.
that they're talking about in
Yeah. Cheers.
no, it's not Mayan, Bodhi.
No.
It's not Mayan. Oh my goodness.
Okay, I'm not familiar with this site.
Me
I don't
neither.
think there are ziggurats per se in Iran. That seems unlikely, but I'm not positive. I know that Persian was at one point written with cuneiform, so there was a lot of cultural exchange between Mesopotamia and the Iranian plateau. But I'm not positive that ziggurats per se were built in Iran. But then again, what do I know? I'm not a historian of Iran. Savage Mayan ziggurat Cobra, oh no, for $4.99
Oh
says this could all
no.
it says this could all be avoided if you bother to Google any definition at all. No. All he needs is
Mayan
the Bible.
ziggurats. That's gonna haunt my nightmares.
Seriously. We gotta we gotta find out what the Mexica word for ziggurat is, because I'm sure they had one.
Probably.
Wherever Dr. David O. Bowles is, like he's my go-to Nawat scholar.
Oh my god.
Okay.
And all
Wherever
seven
he
thousand
is,
languages
I bet he
today.
just started
Might
to
have Babel.
scream in pain.
So, okay, I think he's going
God.
to say no, that the ancestors of some of these languages
Oh, is
came
this
out.
is this like created kinds?
I think
There
it's
are
gonna be like
language
that, yeah.
kinds?
I think so. Well, to be fair, in terms of actual historical linguistics, we don't have the evidence to say that all languages descend from a single common ancestor language.
Of course.
And
Of
so
course.
it is entirely possible that we can't actually trace back languages to a single common ancestor, in which case the concept of language, quote unquote, kinds is more applicable to languages than it would be to say biology. So, but Kip, you want to start us out here with the Tower of Babel explains?
All right. The Tower of Babel explains why everyone does not speak the same language today. There are over 6,900 spoken languages in the world today. Were there that many people who came out of Babel with a new language? Not at all. So how do you explain this? Believe it or not, creationists and evolutionists actually agree on something here. We agree that languages change. Of course, the evolutionary view assumes that we all go back to one
it doesn't.
single God, what the fuck? We all go
Drink.
back to one single grunting ape language or proto language. Naturally, this is in opposition to what God says in Genesis 11:1-9, where God is the originator of the first language and confused that language due to rebellion.
Do you remember when, just before we read this paragraph, I was pointing out how linguists do not actually have the data to suggest that all languages definitely go back?
Yes.
So he clearly did not actually look into what is actually the consensus among linguists, like at all.
I bet Bodhi has no concept of what a language isolate is.
No. Now, don't get me wrong. Proto-world is a hypothesis that is taken seriously by linguists, but we don't have the evidence to actually reject the null hypothesis on that one. We just can't. Sure, there are some weird coincidences cross-linguistically that seem to hint that maybe there's some kind of deeper connection between languages, but we just can't support it. And so, no, there is no theory that all human languages go back to one grunting ape language. I'd also like to point out all human languages are ape languages because humans are apes.
Are apes.
So if you want to find a non-ape language, go learn Klingon or something. Because apparently Klingons are actually crabs? I don't know, it's a little confusing. It's not very clear.
Oh, everything is crab!
Yeah, including the Klingons.
That's right.
All right, we have a few super chats to read here. Let's see. Mark Agamotto 1313 Smith for $10 says, the reason they are big on bottom and small on top is the builders were busy stoned. And yes, they were very silly kid audience. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's it. It could also just be basics of structural integrity. Savage Mayan Ziggurat Cobra for $4.99 says, remember kids, this is why you don't take people as authorities based on who they married. Yeah. Because remember, the reason Bodhi has this promise is because he married Ken Ham's daughter. Jasper Temple Farm the Mighty for €6 says, are the rocks the ziggurats built with made of flood deposited rocks? So they're actually not made with rocks. That's the thing. They're made with bricks. And
baked bricks, very importantly. Yeah. Right. This was the innovation, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
And very importantly. And there's, listen, I didn't mention this, but there's like, I talked about how Etem and Enki, it's not just the Tower of Babel stele, right? Like Esarhaddon's chronicles talk about Etem and Enki. Nabopolassar, who was the father of Nebuchadnezzar II, talks about his work on Etem and Enki, and this is kind of a feature, is the renovation of the structure using baked bricks.
Yeah.
By the way, is Jasper Temple Farm the Mighty? Is that Jasper Niem? Who is? I forgot his name already.
I don't know.
Is that the same guy?
I don't know. Okay, guys. Here's the thing. If you change your name and it's more than just putting like something between the first part of your and last part of your name in parentheses, as far as my brain goes, you are a completely new individual with no connection to any other individual who has ever been in my chat.
Connection. None at all.
Yeah. So that is just how that's going to work. So if you want me to know that you're the same person, you will have to be very explicit about it, and I will also still forget. We got a few more supers to read. Roshan Polydactyl Jesus Keller for $1.99 says, that is not how ad hoc pigeons work, and I'm not sure to what exactly you're referring, but I believe you. Mapleson, who's been a member for 4 months and is at the amulet level, says, Chunga Zanbil is an Elamite ziggurat in Iran near Susa. Okay, well, there you go.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't know, maybe. Savage Mayan Ziggurat Cobra for $4.99 says, Dapper, where did you find this 6th grader's rough draft paper? You can get this on Amazon, believe it or not.
Hey, do you guys think Maple Sun is a Canadian?
It's certainly a Canadian-sounding name.
And yes, Jasper is the person that you were asking about, Kim.
Excellent.
Okay.
They just
cheers, Jasper.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, Vish, do you want to get this next section?
Sure. But languages change over time. Gee, wow. What a revelation. Let's look at changes in the English language as an example. As a United States citizen who grew up in the United States, I speak American English. But to be more precise, when I return home to my family, I speak a Western Illinois dialect that sounds like a choppy country style that is rather conversational.
Dialect,
even some denote this as hick. Yes, I admit it. Though I am proud of my humble dialect, many others find it rather unsophisticated and difficult to listen to. Listen.
Here's the
that
thing,
part
Kim.
of Illinois, if it's close enough to the Ozarks, sure, that can sound like hickey, but the Deep South and Appalachia has you beat by a literal country mile.
Yeah. As far as whether or not it's a
right,
dialect, Kip, the thing is, there's no one consistent definition for what counts as a dialect.
Yeah.
Basically, if you just
Yeah.
need to refer to two different speech varieties that have their own speech communities
Certainly.
that are closely enough related to be called the single
Yeah.
language, you just call them dialects. We got a few more super chats here. Metageeky Platypus Warlock for $2 says, "Are Klingons crab with a C or crab with a K?" That is a good question. I'm going to go with C. Savage Mind Ziggurat Cobra for $1.99 says, "People paid money for this on purpose." Yes. Based on what I hear from Bodhi, this is like a fairly popular book among his target audience, shall we say.
Okay, I'm going to continue.
Maple Sun says he went to high school in Florida.
That doesn't make you not Canadian, though.
Yeah, that doesn't make you not Canadian. Okay, in various parts of the United States, American English is quite varied. From the New England states to the Midwest to the West Coast, that is Southern erasure. There is indeed some variation. Need I mention Tennessee, whose residents have a unique variety of English all to themselves, but unlike my dialect, many agree that Tennessean is actually quite pleasant to listen to. Does he not understand that Eastern Tennessee is solidly within the Appalachian, regional dialect?
I honestly have no idea why he's going into this much.
This is
at
filler,
minimum
right? Like so much
3
of this book.
Tennessean dialects, the one that's close to the Mississippi where Memphis is, Central and Northern Tennessee where Nashville is, and Eastern Tennessee where all the mountains are.
This
I
is seriously
just
it's just a bad book report, guys.
It is.
He's filling space. He's
right,
getting to his word. It's like he's being paid by the word. For this.
All right. Well, at least we're gonna get some actual English through the ages.
What the fuck?
I'll help with this. So we've got Bodhi. We're just gonna skip to the table, and then we'll after I get through this, we can get to this if you want, Vish, or if we have enough time, which we might not. So we've got Old English from about 1000 AD, which, okay. Feder urthuthe ert on helfnum. And then we've got Middle English, Ure Fader that art in heavenes. And then we've got Early Modern English, Our Father which art in heaven. And then we've got Late Modern English, 1700s, Our Father who art in heaven, and or Our Father who is in heaven. So he is right that this is indeed describing a lot of language change. In fact, the biggest changes from Old to Middle. Middle English is basically what happens after the Norman invasion and conquest, where basically a lot of French went into English, and also English lost some of its less convenient bits and grabbed some more convenient bits from Norse. Because the Norse had words like they and are, and English was like, this is way better. We're going to use those now.
Yeah. It sucks that we lost Thorn. I really
Thorn,
feel like we should bring that back.
Rip Thorn. Thorn is a great letter.
Yeah.
But you know what happened?
It is a good letter.
Basically what happened was printing presses from Italy didn't bother, typefaces didn't bother to have it because they were mostly produced in places like Italy. And so for a while, English typists were trying to use the letter Y. That's why you get ye
That's why
old
you get
shop.
Ye old. It's not. It's supposed to be the old.
Yeah, it's the old.
Y is the stand-in for Thorn. Yeah.
Ye was never a word for the in English, but they were using it as a stand-in. And then basically it just went away. Yep. Although, depending on exactly when in Middle English we're getting this, because of course he doesn't cite any of this.
400 years is a long time, by the way.
Yeah, if this were 1100, really I would actually expect that instead of that with THAT, you'd actually get Thorn with a T, and then there'd be a line over that to let you know it's an abbreviation, because that's a very common abbreviation in older forms of English for that, is you just get Thorn T with a line over it. Or you get Thorn with a line through the top bar of the thorn. That can also be an abbreviation for that. I did get an A in Old English, in case anyone is wondering. So
I did not.
We know Iceland. Iceland kept the thorn, which I find very useful.
Good job, Iceland. Seriously, props on that one.
It just sucks. No one speaks Islenka, so sucks.
So I'll read a little bit more.
What is this, guys? What is this footnote? Comparison of Matthew 6:9, comma.
Oh, we
Mansfield University.
I'm gonna actually just copy that and paste it into a browser and see what comes up.
Okay.
It'll probably just be this table.
So I'll read while you're looking that up.
Yeah, keep reading.
1,000 years ago, English looked somewhat German. Well, that's because it's a Germanic language.
Jeez, come on, Bodhi.
But to make things worse, English is actually classified as a Germanic language. What do you mean how to make that worse?
What
do you mean? That's just what it is.
Oh my
What
god.
it is.
Along with languages like
drinking.
Swedish, German, Norwegian, Dutch, Afrikaans, Austrian, Icelandic, and so on. It was Germanic tribes that brought this language to the British Isles via the Angles, which is where we get the name English, and Saxons primarily. Footnote 3, there were Germanic tribes already here by the time of the Angles and Saxons, and Utes and Danes arrived in the 4th to 6th centuries, but these were the large migrations. Of course, other Germanic settlers have arrived there since the Angles and Saxons too. Then Vikings from Scandinavia brought Germanic-laced languages.
If they
It's
were
like
Vikings, they
Bodhi
were just. Ugh.
It's like Bodhi just stitched together a bunch of book reports and papers that he wrote in high school into this book. This book.
Hell yeah,
Right.
Pibblepunk.
Pillowpunk, half dog, half canine for $5 says, learn modern German and you're halfway to speaking Old English. That's not far off. Like the a lot of words are very similar. Like even like terms for animals, like Old English for dog is Hund, bird is Vogel.
Do we start? I'm just looking at Triceratops's comment. This is a linguistics book.
Yeah.
Maybe we start.
little bit.
Do we start referring to Bodhi as hashtag?
That's not a
linguist?
language. Nah, he hasn't earned that privilege.
Yeah.
I like what Nitro Indigo says. English got a lot of horizontal gene transfer from French.
Yes.
You're not wrong. Also a fair bit from Old or Middle Norse. Yeah. Actually, German and Old English have in common that the word for they and the word for she are like phonetically distinct. Indistinct. They're homophones. Yeah, there you go. Which is why English got they from Norse, because it was less ambiguous than sie. So, but English began changing from other forms of Germanic when the French/Latin-based language. Just say Norman French, my guy. Norman French. Why is it hard to say Norman French? Was introduced to the British Isles when the Bayeux Tapestry, named after the town Normandy.
Why are we talking about this?
He's just padding his book report.
Literally, he has to make the point that languages change, and so in order to do that, while keeping this book length, he's going on and on. Normans who spoke a French. Oh, I'm going to take a drink.
French is Latin-based. What do you mean French/Latin-based? French is Latin-based. It's a Romance language. Oh my god, why do I not have any alcohol?
That was your choice. You knew what was coming. DM hiding from Dapper Dinosaur sends a $1 super chat. I'm not seeing a sticker.
Oh, is that
It's
it's
just a $1
just
super
it's
chat.
just an empty super
I just
chat.
see a blink. Blink bubble.
To announce Meta Geeky Platypus Warlock, the thing about Klingons being crabs, that was their 10th super chat. So I want to say thank you very much for all of the generosity. Look, guys, it really does mean a lot, especially today, right? Like, it really does mean a lot today. It always does, but... okay, so they conquered England in 1066. Yeah, great. Languages began borrowing many French and Latin terms. And the language began to mix. I hate how he's phrasing this. This is actually a rather common event between nations that are conquered. I mean, okay, that's true, buddy. They assimilate cultural language aspect.
German angels?
That's why it's likely what Germanic Angles, yeah.
Angles.
Yeah. Language on the British Isles deviated from the mainland Germanic languages. No, Bodhi. Okay, Bodhi. The language was always going to deviate from the language spoken back in what we now think of as Germany. Because languages just do that. When populations of speakers are isolated from each other, they will diverge in different directions. Now, the reason that English is so unusual among the Germanic languages in particular, and the reason it has so many Romance loanwords in it, is because of this. But they were going to diverge no matter what. That's why there is more than one Germanic language. That's why German and Dutch aren't the same language. It's because this always happens. Anyway, the Germanic that the Angles and Saxons spoke assimilated with other languages spoken by the tribes on the Isles. This is actually largely not true. English has almost no Celtic influence from before the Norman conquest. It's vanishingly small, which is weird, and we're not sure why. There's only a very few words that we can in modern English or even Old English that we can trace to Celtic origins, and we don't really know why that is, why they resisted that so much. So he's wrong here, and it's weird. It's actually one of those things about English that like we're not really sure why that is. So just as English has changed significantly over the past 1,000 years, it becomes easy to see how the original languages, such as the original Germanic language family at Babel. Okay, so he's saying that Proto-Germanic
There's the claim.
started at Babel. Okay, could have rapidly changed in the 4,000 years since that time, whether spoken or written. So okay, but here's the thing: what this means is that Bodhi is saying that Indo-European languages aren't a real group. So according to this, if he's correct in saying, or if what he's saying is Germanic is a language family that came out of Babel, that means that Germanic is not related to the Italic Indo-European languages like Etruscan or Latin. It's not related to the Hellenic languages like modern Greek and the various other dialects / languages of Greek. It's not related to Sanskrit or Persian or or the Celtic languages, even though, according to the overwhelming consensus of linguists, yes, they absolutely are related. Indo-European is a language family. It also includes ancient languages that are have left no descendants, like Hittite. And like, so how does this work?
He went through this whole pointless rehearsal just to say this.
Mm-hmm.
From a big picture, the number of languages that came out of Babel would have been far less than the language divisions we have today.
Adding the book report.
But the thing is that so this is actually the same thing they do with biology, right? You'll say, okay, so you think all dogs are related, or say, we'll go to something easier, like all seals are related.
Kinds.
All seals are related, and all bears are related, but they're not related to each other. What does it mean then?
Reasons
that their skulls are nearly identical, and that we have primitive seals that walk around like bears? What does any of that mean? Like, no, don't worry about it. It's just a coincidence. The fact that there are cognates, not borrowings, cognates between all the Indo-European languages, don't worry about that. That's just a coincidence. God just did it that way.
Robert Madewell asks if Proto-Germanic is pre-Yiddish.
Yeah, it would actually be pre-Yiddish. That's actually accurate,
yeah, because Yiddish came from like what, Old High German?
Yeah.
Listen,
so
I don't know about language development in Europe, Indo-European languages. But how far back can we trace the original Germanic language family?
So we can trace Proto-Germanic back to so it's hard to give dates, right? Because for a long time the Germanic languages weren't written. But we know that we have East Germanic in the form of Gothic, which is the most divergent Germanic language that we have. It's like the earliest branch off from the Germanic languages. All the extant Germanic languages are all West Germanic. So we can trace them back to another ancestor language that would have been contemporaneous with Gothic, or maybe a little bit earlier, and the split was a little bit earlier. And we can trace Gothic back into like the first millennium. So Proto-Germanic was
CE?
Because that's who, Romans were interacting with Germanic tribes, so they were speaking something.
Right. And we have a number of tribes that we know were speaking related languages.
That's a pretty bold claim, though.
Yeah, so the Germanic languages at least go into the first millennium BC, but we also know that much before that, and they had common ancestors with other Indo-European languages. So, like, we know that, like, you know, they're related genetically to the Celtic languages and to the Italic languages and the Hellenic languages. And that is the west side of Indo-European. And on the other side, we have things like Sanskrit and Persian that's on the eastern side of the Indo-European, because there's a big east-west split. It's called the centum-kentum split, where on one side, the word for 100 ended up having a soft S sound, centum, and then on the other side, it kept a harder K sound, which is probably more like the Proto-Indo-European. And so a lot of the Eastern...
Bodhi must think, Bodhi must think that everything that came out of Babel was a language isolate.
Yes, it seems like it would have to be that way. which would mean he would have to reject the common ancestry of Germanic and Celtic and
Yes,
Italic
right?
and
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
It would also mean that
So-
he would probably have to reject the common ancestry of Semitic languages with other Afro-Asiatic languages like Berber
No
or Egyptian.
question. Yes, right.
Oh yeah, no, he absolutely does.
Jasper
Nuts.
Temple Farm the Mighty says, "Oh no, I've missed a few of them. Hold on." Savage Mayan Ziggurat Cobra for $4.99 says, "At least we know of this. At least we know of this wasn't written by AI. Too much enough for that. Yeah, to be fair, AI would have done a better job. It wouldn't have been more accurate, but it would have sounded better." Roshan Apolodactyl Jesus Keller for $1.99 says, "German and Deutsch aren't the same language." Well, so what a modern German would call Deutsch and what a modern English speaker would call German are the same thing. But when you get into historical linguistics and talk about like Old High German, Low German, various Germanic language families like East and West Germanic, that gets much more complicated, and there's a lot more like fine gradations, and you have to pay a lot more attention to figure out exactly what language is being talked about. Jasper Temple from the Mighty for €2 says, "Created language kinds." Yeah, that's basically what we're going for. But we're going to get into root languages from Babel. Root languages from Babel are in the ballpark of language families. We're going to get into that next week, because right now it is time to wrap this up. My Savage Mayan Ziggurat Cobra for $1.99 says, "Baralingua."
Baralingua.
Oh,
As
that's
opposed to
cursed.
Baramin.
Beautiful.
That's cursed.
Beautiful.
Adding in the Latin combined with the inappropriately used Hebrew. Wonderful. All right, so the first thing I want to say as we wrap up, guys, is thank you so much. You guys have been exceptionally generous, and a whole bunch of money is going to be heading towards Bent to help offset the cost of this veterinarian bill. I don't know exactly what we're going to do going forward in terms of, is there going to be another fundraiser stream? Is there going to be instead just a GoFundMe? I'm not positive. That'll be something he and I talk about. And like I said, my current plan is to eventually get the receipt up. If that's something people really want to see, which I understand, you want to be able to verify that there actually is a need, let me know and I can fast track that. As it stands right now, it'll probably be something I put up in a few days, but if that's something you really want to see, just please let me know and I can fast track it. With that being said, Vishanti, is there anything coming up on your channel that you want people to know about?
I haven't even been able to think far enough ahead into the week
That's
to give
fair.
you a proper answer on that.
Hey, that's okay. What about you, Kip?
Oh, yeah, there is. And maybe I'll, if I can figure out what the hell I'm doing here.
Well, while
throw
Kip figures that
I'll
out.
throw a link in. Should I do another sobriety test?
No,
I mean, oh no,
yeah,
not
I think
that.
you're fine.
Okay. I mean, I'd do it if somebody threw you a whole bunch of money. But
What's the amount?
I don't know. I do. Listen, I do a sobriety test for $80 American.
Okay, well there you go. If anyone
All right.
wants to spend
There you
80
go.
or
If
more
anybody
American
wants to
dollars,
see one, that's what it'll cost you. So I don't have a link, but you know what, guys? Y'all know where my channel is. I expect it's easy
it's linked
to
in
find.
the description. Also, you can
It's
just
linked in the
open it up.
description.
Mhm.
So on
Yep.
Monday, actually, Redim, yes, my son buys me a new bottle of Nika every Christmas, and he told me yesterday that he's already on the lookout for it. The liquor store where he usually buys it just recently moved, and he was in a state of panic. But he figured out where they moved to. So, shoo, that's good. Sorry, I was distracted by the chat. On Monday, I've teased this for quite a while. It's still, the whole thing is up on my Patreon. But I had a 2-hour conversation with Dr. Heath Durrell and Dan McClellan. Dr. Heath Durrell wrote the book Child Sacrifice in Ancient Israel, and we talked all about child sacrifice in ancient Israel. This was in part in response to some of the things that my good friend Dr. Joel Carrico has published online. But I'm very happy to announce that the first hour of that conversation is going to be publicly available on Monday.
Nice.
So Monday morning, I've set up a premiere just because I like doing those. Come and check it out. And I have it on good authority that both Joel Carrico and Heath Durrell will be in the chat on Monday morning for my stream. Something I'm working on is actually having a sit down with both of them at some point, with Joel and with Heath, to talk about this issue on in public, which I think could be fun. So that's something. That's all stuff that's coming up, but
Awesome.
I'm excited about it.
All right.
And Christmas is coming.
Yes, it is.
So, and we're doing this next week on Saturday. That
So
would be the 28th, right?
that's the plan. If for some reason you can't make it, that's okay. We can.
I think
have
I
several weeks
probably
worth of this.
can,
Okay.
but I will be broadcasting from parts. Well, not parts unknown. It would probably be my brother's house.
So parts
Or-
distant.
Parts distant, yeah.
Okay.
But I could probably do that.
Okay.
We'll
What's coming up on this channel? So on Tuesday we've got the Christmas stream. Now you might be thinking, "Hey Dapper, that's the 24th. That's Christmas Eve." Okay, but counterpoint. Traditionally, Christian liturgical days start at sunset, which means that as long as I'm streaming after sunset, it will officially be Christmas where I am, and it will be after sunset. So it'll be Christmas. So you can deal with that. And yes, I will say Merry Christmas until after old calendar Christmas is done, which isn't going to be until like, what is it, like January math, like 18th or something like that. So buckle up for that. But yes, right now the plan is to have Bent in a Santa hat. And we did not quite get to me having a tutu this day, so you know, I'm not going to be in the tutu. Bent will be in the Santa hat because you guys paid for it, and I bought a Santa hat for that. That will be a Kent with Bent, but you know, it'll be Christmassy. I don't know. There will be snow on my set for Kent with Bent, and it'll probably say Merry Christmas.
We will be streaming during Hanukkah, so I can pull out my Hanukkah
Yes.
headband.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There will be
Very kitschy.
yeah, there will be a stream during Hanukkah. So that's Tuesday. That will be again at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Then on Thursday at noon, we will be doing the premiere of the sequel to Jeffrey Tompkins and the Mysteries of the Deep. This one is called Jeffrey Tompkins is Salty. And that will be at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Then on Friday, we will not be doing Star Trek Lexington over on Top Hats Off. However, I do want to do some kind of stream over there. What I am thinking of is I have a copy of Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log, which is a solo RPG. So I might try to run through a solo RPG with chat for that. That could just be what we do there. So that's not set in stone right now, but that is my current idea for a plan. And then on Saturday, a week from today, at the same time, so that it'll be 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, the plan is to pick up with more of Bodhi's nonsense with hopefully both guests, but if one or both can't make it, then I will just have to, you know, carry on. So,
Hey, can I say something that I forgot to mention
Sure.
just at the end here? So, I promised my good friend Stephen Nelson has launched an excellent web resource called Cross Bible, where he's trying to put together a really great version, a really great resource of different Bible versions, including links to original manuscripts
Nice.
and all sorts of additional tools. So over on History Valley right now, I believe they started at 1:00 Pacific time. He's doing a live stream where he's demoing that new online resource. It's a free resource. I've looked at it. It's really great. You guys should check it out. And I hope when this ends, some people can go over and check out that stream.
All right. Well, with that, everybody, thank you so much. We're going to get out of here. I really do appreciate it. And you can ask Bent whether or not I sent him the money when you see him on for Christmas. So you can make sure, hold me accountable. Thank you so much again, and I'm sure that if Carmen were able to comprehend what happened, and also if she weren't currently probably unconscious under anesthesia, she would appreciate it. So, all right, bye everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Ben Tovend, Ferrevara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Eleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Wallace, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.